Okay, this seemed like the quickest way to get this out to you. I had wonderful plans about trying to sit down with everybody and kind of walk through this data, but given the amount of time and the amount of work we've got, I just don't see that happening. So this seemed like the quickest, easiest, and most unprofessional way that I could get it out to you. So anyway, through the reengineering the other day, I sat back and, of course, I was constantly thinking about growth and positioning ourselves. And so this is something that I kind of had on my mind for a long time, was looking at the job growth more in depth and looking at how it might play into the reengineering. So this is my presentation, and yes, I went the Big Lebowski, the dude on it. So the concept that I put together, and you can read this here, I tried to come up with more slides than Mark, but I think I fell 30 or 40 short. I wanted to look at the job data that was out there to suggest reengineering potential. And when we start talking about the departments and synergy of both individual departments and of colleges, to take that into consideration, knowing that hey, we're past, I think we're past 14,000 students now. The 2020 goal might not be there, but of course the growth goal is still in place. So tried to take data, both national data and then some local data, which is internal data as well. I didn't pull any state data. That probably could be done, but given the fact that I started this probably 36 hours ago, and the grouping and all that stuff, I just didn't have time to put it together. So anyway, and finally, on the last slide, the growth is one of the things, or kind of to spur on conversations or your thoughts. And I'm really, I'm sure there are errors in here and there's different things. This is really to spur on thoughts. If you want to point out how it's invalid and that kind of stuff, I don't really care. I know, again, it was done kind of quickly. But so what I used as far as the national data goes is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 10-year largest growth, and that actually is through 2022. I also used the fastest growing. And then I used, just to go a little bit different, was the U.S. News and World Reports. And I did it because of the criteria that was in here. Now, are those skewed a little bit? Yeah, I think so, and we probably all do. But growth, volume, percentage, salary, job prospects were a big point as well, and the employment rate. So with those being kind of the top 90% of what they were looking at, I thought it was really related to what we were looking at. And then on the local level, the information that Chris had sent out to us with the graduate head count, the undergraduate head count, and then the wait list numbers for the last couple of semesters, just to try to gauge. Because if you look at it nationally, that doesn't really address what's happened locally as well. And again, so I think balancing out the two and using that to kind of think about the engineering process, or as you've put on the final touches for your suggestions for the re-engineering process, maybe this will add some thoughts or add some reasons why to do something or not to do something. So the process that I took on the national side took the jobs that were out there that they had listed in the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and then I really tried to delete those. So I moved from the left column, there was the list, over to the right columns of those that perhaps we could do. A lot of this stuff I kind of learned as I went, what jobs were and that kind of stuff, and so some of them are even deleted off from this list. And then I did that with all three of the rankings that I looked at. On the local level, made the spreadsheet. First on the left, that was the final wait list, I believe, from the spring. Compared that to the fall, and then the 20th day out of the data that Chris pulled as well. So here are a couple of the things that I came up with. I went through a little process of color coding and then trying to group them together on a whiteboard and then putting them in this presentation. So here are a couple of things that I came up with. I'm starting with Jeff, because Jeff, you're probably the quickest one to, if you don't like it, you'll just turn it off and move on and go on to better things. So I'll save you some time here. So again, looking at the job data that was out there, if there is a little red star, it means that it was indicated in more than one of the job categories that I looked at on the national level. Some of the positions that we have, or some of the degrees and programs that we have, some of them we don't have, but I think it's worth considering. Some of them may be completely unrealistic. Obviously, I had to go and read about some of the jobs that were even out there. There were some that I had that didn't even require a high school diploma, that I had to read about to find out that, yeah, we probably don't need to make that into a degree here. So I may be off in these areas, but again, there we go. Let me get rid of that. Sorry. But again, these are just open for thoughts and expansion, and the thought of, well, maybe we don't have a cohort here, or maybe we can't offer it here, but what if we moved to Salina and partnered with somebody to offer something at a hospital or somewhere else? I think one of the exciting things is, as you go through this, is there are a lot of degrees that are out there as well. That we already have, but there are some new ones that maybe we want to consider, or as we set ourselves up for the future and we look at faculty and we look at size of departments, we want to make sure that we can have these, be in a position to offer these programs as they continue to grow. And of course, under medical, again, my definition, so it probably doesn't make sense to call it medical, but that's just what I threw under there. I did put in dental because it did rate in a couple different things, and I know we're talking about the mid-level, so I just listed dental as a whole concept. So that's, Jeff, that's kind of how I broke it down, and I know there's some new programs in there for what it's worth. So please consider and think about in the growth. Information technology, a couple of notes on the information technology area. Yeah, I really like the idea of changing the name. I don't know if anybody still truly understands informatics outside of the industry, or students that are new and just starting to explore. I know at the graduate level in the MPS we have some clearly defined security programs, but I don't think we do at the undergraduate level. And I've talked with Melissa on this before. I know she gets requests. We've had students write and suggest different names for our programs, but I think we need something clearly defined. So I do have computer science and software engineering in here, Mark. I think it makes sense to pull these two together for a number of reasons. Not only because of the programs, but also for the students' sake. When Paul got up and talked about and said everything that he did was for the students, a student cannot change their major their junior year from computer science to one of the INT or the MIS, because there is such a different core between the math core and the INT core. And I just think one is, they all align, they all make sense as far as the programming goes. I also think that them being in the same college and being located next together, they can work together on their core programs to help that flexibility for students as they move from one way to the other. I think as far as synergy goes, here's a great combination, and if you look at the growth stuff, it says, hey, these are areas that are going to have great combinations as well. One of the areas that was out there was an IT manager, and I just listed that as a bullet point ahead, but those are the degrees or the jobs that were highlighted, again, in those areas. I just think that makes sense to come together and be one unit, or to be two separate departments, but at least be under the same college. I think that there's the synergy advantage to that. Same thing with, again, just throw things out there, as naive as can be, but the marketing, those are some jobs that came out as highlighted jobs. Obviously, we wouldn't have I'd say I don't think we would have a track for real estate agent, but maybe perhaps there's some training for the broker level, an agent above the ladder, a level above the agent. Maybe there's some training along. Maybe there's some a branch or a mid-level program that we can look at along that lines. Looking over at management and operations. And Mark, I know you've talked about the fact that if you look at other departments at other universities, they're just the same size or maybe larger than management and marketing. But as we plan for future growth, so we don't have to come back in a year or two, is now the time when we've got some reengineering and maybe some money on the table to make that split now. And again, these are just suggestions. You guys will organize these much better than I will. On the accounting side, I didn't know as I read through almost all of them, and I didn't star bookkeeping, but I know it was in at least 2, probably 3, that there was a mid-level training that it seemed like was very interesting, that there was a possibility for people to use. And I know I'm going way over my 5 minutes, but hey, I'm doing it. And the accounting as well, not only the growth, but planning forward. That was something that was highlighted in several programs. So as we look at faculty needs, those types of things, maybe here is some support for that as well. And then on the finance side, that was another huge area as well as far as job demand in the future, and those were some of the programs that they listed below. How that department would stay together or broke up, again, no real suggestions. Other ones that were out there, and I think the highlight here is that a lot of these we already have, maybe on the marketing end of things, both in the department and the virtual college. We need to highlight these a little bit better. Some of them probably make sense that are in here, some of them don't. But again, we either have them or there are other suggestions that we can have. Art director, translator, taking advantage of the military. Again, translator came out in a couple of different reports. So looking at the local level, again, to not just say that, hey, because it's not on the national level, it's not important. But if you look at these, and I left out things like professional studies, I didn't really break it down program by program, but these were ones looking at the last 3 years where you could really see the growth numbers, or that they grew, and there's some ideas as far as expansion and thinking about how the department is or how big the department's going to get. Perhaps you can use this in your request for faculty as you go forward as well. But the highlighted on this one is obviously AEP. Healthcare has been identified in a lot of the positions, and so the MBA for healthcare, and Mark, you and I have talked about that a couple times, and I'm excited about that. And then psychology as well, and especially at the graduate level. I know there's a lot of additional requirements that go with the amount of work that the psychologist can take on. But you see the growth there at the graduate level. When I broke down the undergraduate level, and there's a couple of slides on this, and I'll try to move quickly to get through it, but some of the highlighted programs that were out there, again, accounting, as we've talked about, all of these programs have shown great growth, allied health as well, but then when you break it down into the individual areas, the geosciences, and you get down into informatics, and you see the growth in that area as well. One other piece with computer science and informatics is I know computer science has started the discussion about moving online. Them being partnered and working with informatics would be, I think, a great advantage to them because they've already moved a technical degree online. One more reason to maybe pull them together or align them under the same college, but not pull them together because of the size potential down the road. Justice Studies, as you've seen, a couple of the other programs, and when you start looking at management and marketing, you start adding up those numbers. I think we're all on board that there's some, a large department that only has the possibility to grow. So do we take the advantage now and break it up? Business education, I can tell you in the last couple of days, we've had South Carolina and California. We've talked with them about how we can offer our program there. They're very excited about that as well. So I see future growth in that area. Look at the programs here, and if you need to pause because I'm running out of time, you can take a look at those as well. But again, the expansion areas that we have where we've had growth, and great job in the music area as well. Looking at the wait list, just kind of the summary, gen ed's always in demand. This is maybe not so much on the reengineering, but on your faculty request. Communication is still a bottleneck for us, so maybe there's a virtual faculty position in there. MIS, very high, same thing, management, that new position is desperately needed, and hopefully that will help us out there. Math and English are doing much better, but there's still a need, and then you can see those programs down below. So my summary is just this, a couple of suggestions. I've got about 20 seconds left, so I'm sorry this has taken so long, but I thought a look at the job data might help think about departments, and especially think about the reorganization, the reengineering for down the road for future growth. Maybe not where we're at today, we can manage it, but if we break up a few things or pull them together in the future, does that help us and put us in a better position? So thanks, and hopefully there's some thoughts here.